I had really high hopes for this film, and once again, it disappointed me. But if you guys don't know who I am, hi, my name is Deborah, student singer, songwriter, and everything else in between. Welcome back to my channel, where I talk about my favorite TV shows and movies, and today we're talking about Damsel. So let's start with the storyline. So the movie starts off with this girl called Elodie, and she's from this place/community. We don't know what this country is necessarily called or where she is. You probably won't remember because it's not really that memorable. The first scene that we get of her is of her chopping wood, which I'm guessing isn't really normal for the time. That's what they're trying to portray, that it wasn't really normal for the time for women. And I personally think that's quite interesting. It's just not really built upon, but we see her chop wood nonetheless and go back to her village and be addressed as a lady. And that is it for her interaction with the rest of her people, which we will get into a little bit later. She has a sister called Floria, and when we get to her home, we realize that she has her biological father and her stepmother. Eventually, we find out that her biological mother has passed away. The next thing we know, she is being sold off to this king and queen to marry their son, who is the prince. And in return, her family gets like a hefty sum of money. And, you know, I don't know, they get to feed their people is what they say all the time. Now, her father's forcing her to do this, so she doesn't really have a reason necessarily to accept it or want it, but they do need the money. And she constantly says that she must do it for her people and that it is her duty. And we never really get explained why. But again, I'll get into that a little bit later. She tells her sister about this and they talk about it and she accepts and they ship her off to go get married in this kingdom. They travel to the castle and the ride to the castle is extremely creepy because it's full of dragons. But you know, tomato, tomato. And you meet the king and queen. The first thing you notice is that her servants are in these red, witchy-like looking robes, which just reminds me of the Bene Gesserit from Dune, but with curvier headgear. Personally, for me, if I was being sold off to get married somewhere and that was the outfit people decided to wear, I would be freaked out, as that is a serious red flag. But you know, that's just me. Despite the creepiness, however, her sister gets really excited and Elodie gets to meet the prince. They low-key get along, and at least for a few sentences, they have a bit of small talk while her father arranges the agreements, and I guess everything seems kind of okay. But just as her father finishes arranging the agreements with the royal family, he comes out and he's very distant. We're never really told why, but he has this extremely solemn face. They never explain why, they never explain why we should care, but the stepmother does have her intuition, and after speaking with the queen and trying to relate with her, and the queen telling her that they don't need to get closer for something that was a transaction, she goes back to Elodie and tells her maybe it's not a good idea to get married into this family and that there's something wrong with them. It's kind of already too late, however, and she's accepted it, and she also kind of likes the prince, and Floria likes living in this place, so she agrees to go marry the prince. The wedding day comes, everything seems fine and dandy. They get put in these beautiful outfits, which again, I will say the cinematography and the videography of this film is quite beautiful. They finish the wedding ceremony, and after the wedding ceremony, he tells her that they're going to honor their ancestors, and so he takes her to this place in which he literally shows her to these people who have these golden masks on, which I'm guessing are the nobility. After they do a sort of weird like blood bonding ritual, he carries her bridal style, tells her that he's got her, and then he yeets her into the chasm, which was kind of funny, I'm not gonna lie to you. In this whole entire scene, after she's thrown into the chasm, she suffers greatly. I mean, she gets burnt because there's a dragon down there. The dragon is immediately after her and trying to make her his dinner or her dinner, I'm not really sure. She gets yeeted down there, and that's where the majority of the movie continues its plot. She gets down there and she realizes that number one, there is this dragon that's coming after her and wants to burn her alive. Number two, she's not the only one who's gone through this because there's a whole cave of other girls which have gone through the same, and their names are written all over the walls, and there's barely any way to escape until she finds a wall with a sort of map in which she sees a way to kind of get out. The rest of the film literally deals with her trying to make it out alive and the dragon taunting her and her going through literally every sort of tribulation and somehow still surviving it. Oh, and there's also miracle slugs that can heal injuries, right? Okay, amazing. Her father in the meantime is looking for her, and so he comes with his men. They go down into the cave, and while she doesn't come out because he tells her not to come out, he does eventually apologize for how he has sold her off and not really caring about her well-being and how he was wrong. The folktale that has been told by everyone is that the royal family, when they originated in this land or when they came to colonize this land, God knows, there are other people inhabiting it, and so the king had to make a tough decision and slaughter the offspring of the dragon for their own safety. And as a result, they had to make a pact, 3 daughters for the retribution of the 3 dragons that were previously killed in history, and that's how they've been doing it since. But the reality is the king actually just came and slaughtered the final offspring of the dragon, which were 3 daughters, and he did it completely unprovoked, not to save his ass, not to save his family. He just did it because he wanted to. So the dragon's been really pissed, and as a result, he's been torturing, or she, my bad, the dragon's been torturing the royal family by demanding 3 daughters, otherwise it's gonna burn down the whole entire household. Thing is that the dragon believes that it's killing the 3 daughters of that same king. What it doesn't realize is that the royal family has just been taking 3 innocent girls from a village that have nothing to do with this and giving them their blood to bond with them so that the dragon can smell their blood, making it believe that they are the offspring of the royal family, and therefore when they get thrown down the chasm, the dragon wants to eat them alive. But they actually didn't do anything, and the dragon's been targeting the wrong people this whole entire time, and the dragon has been bamboozled. Okay, got that? Amazing. The real story gets told by the dragon, by the way, as she's having a confrontation with the dragon and she's about to die. The dragon tells her this, the real story. Overall, we're not really missing any action. Eventually, on the kingdom side, they decide to throw down Elodie's sister, Floria, back into the chasm after Elodie finds a way to escape the cave. So she has to go back down the chasm again to save her sister. And they have this confrontation. Dragon tells her the real story. So she decides not to kill the dragon. Instead, she decides to heal it. They form an alliance. Elodie goes back to the surface with her sister, of course, safe and sound. And she decides to take the dragon, and she tells the people, hey, you can leave before I do what I'm about to do. Then the royal family gets cocky, and then they're like, whoa, do you think we're scared of you? And then she decides to burn them down. The prince only had one line, and he said that his family promised him 3 girls had to die before he can marry who he truly wanted to marry, which is still kind of a dick behavior, but I digress. And yeah, that's kind of it. With her father gone, the 3 of them decide to rule the rest of their own kingdom, and that's it. There's nothing spectacular. The problem with this film is that it is truly a beautifully shot film, but the problem is that I truly felt nothing. It was a very lackluster story, and that is because the actual film itself is lacking substance. I didn't feel anything for the main character and for the main heroine, and I think the reason that is because they're trying the strong female character lead too soon, too quickly. But let me explain. Number 1, they did not establish who Elodie is. The thing is, this whole entire time while I was watching the film, I felt very disconnected from the main character, that is Elodie, and that is simply because I didn't care about her. It's because the film did not take the time to build up this female character so that I could care. They say that she needs to care for her people, and that's why she was being married off, and also that the family needs the money to take care of the people, but we don't even get to see these people that she's talking about. I don't know who these people are because you never showed them. Also, why should we care about the people that she's trying to save? Do we see them starving on a daily basis? Have you shown us how she tries to care for her people? Have you shown us how she tries to make them food, or have the servants in her household share rations of food? Have you shown us maybe the children know her and she's just trying to keep them alive? You haven't shown us anything. So how am I supposed to believe you? The thing is that this movie is telling us things rather than showing us things, which a movie is not necessarily supposed to do, or at least in this sort of way. You're telling us that she needs to take care of this community, yet you don't show the community in which we're supposed to feel bonded to and want to see her thrive and survive. I'll use a positive example to counter this. So in this film, while I was watching it, it reminded me of a lot of other borrowed themes from other TV shows and films that executed this idea better. Brave, the Disney movie, Rain, the CW TV show, and Snow White and the Huntsman. 3 completely random premises, but 3 completely random premises that are executed quite well. In Brave, you have the strong female character that does what she wants. She's a traveler, she's a free agent, free woman, and she wants to do what she wants to do, and she wants to travel the world, etc. But one of the reasons you liked Miranda, who is the main character from Brave in the first place, is because you got to see her do what she was actually talking about. You got to see her thrive thrive in her surroundings. You got to see her thrive with her brothers, but she has a good relationship with her dad. You are shown how from a young age her and her dad and her mother interacted, so you tend to feel something for Merida, even though she's quote unquote the strong female character that doesn't need a man. That's perfectly fine, but make us connected to her. When you see Merida as a little girl and you see that her father's arm gets taken off by a bear, you cannot help but feel sympathy for her. Even though she's a strong female character that might not need your sympathy, you feel somewhat that vulnerability, which is very, very important and keeps an audience rooting for the main character. In Rain, you also have a different version of this. So Mary, who, I mean, of course, Rain is based off a real life story of, you know, Mary, Queen of Scots, but at least Mary, who's being sold off to a family, she needs to protect her people. She needs to take care of her people. In many different episodes, you are shown some of Mary's history. You are shown her family members. You are shown her friends. You are shown her time doing school. You are shown a little bit of backstory between her and Francis, and you actively care for Mary and you actively want to see her succeed. This movie does not build that up at all. It doesn't give you anything. It doesn't give you a flashback. It doesn't give you her mother, maybe some memories with her mother. It doesn't give you any memories with her father. It doesn't give you anything to yearn or to emotionally connect to. And my final thought while I was watching this film, that I feel like they could have used this trope, but they didn't, again, which is such a missed opportunity, was like in Snow White and the Huntsman. So in Snow White and the Huntsman, yes, you have the evil queen, and again, this is based on another story, but you have the two sisters trope. You have Ravenna, who is clearly the evil queen, but at least you have some bond with her sister before she decides to kill her sister's baby and her husband. You know, not the greatest of things. Ravenna felt that she needed to protect her sister and they had a duty for power rather than love. And since Elodie is doing this whole dutiful thing, you could have shown how she was internally struggling, telling her sister that she'll do this, but she was crying in the back of her room, crying her eyes out. God knows, give me something to work with, because I don't have anything and I'm scrambling for reasons to care, and I shouldn't have to scramble. I know these are three completely different examples, but I couldn't stop thinking about these examples while I was watching this film and how these tropes are executed better than what we get in this movie. Let's talk about her scenes in the chasm when she's yeeted down there, because the majority of this film happens within that area. I don't mind this necessarily. I don't think this would have been bad, but I think it could have been executed better. Personally, by her going down that chasm, I think having a talking dragon is an interesting choice, to say the least. I personally would have gone without the whole talking dragon situation to kind of make that bond in which she has to bond with the dragon, and therefore it feels like that bond is earned. But you also have magical slugs. I'm not sure. But anyway, let's go with this talking dragon, right? Let's go with this choice. Why is it that when she goes down this chasm, we're shown a bunch of other girls that used to be previously there, but there is no interaction with them? Now, I know, of course, the majority of girls had to be dead, but you couldn't have given us a little bit of a flashback to their personalities, to the girlies, and why they were down there, so I could care about the previous woman who had died? Like, I was personally expecting the woman who had been down there to maybe come as spirits, whisper to her, or get a flashback to how they were different types of women and they deserved better, and give us a fun little piece of their personality. The movie does not do that. It does not do that at all. Another part that really irked me is that how Elodie is supposed to know everything so quickly without anybody's help feels a little bit unrealistic. So when she gets down to the chasm, and my girl has survived everything, okay? She's been burnt, she's been stabbed, she's nearly had her like head broken into. I swear, I don't know how she survives it, but whatever. Okay, she gets to read this map, and naturally, if you're in a cave with symbols, the last thing you would possibly do is to understand all the symbols immediately. There has to be some level of confusion. So maybe you could have given us a few scenes of her trying to figure it out, trying to look on guidance with her mother, with everybody else. You could have given us a scene, and that could help us understand Elodie more as a character, see her break down a little bit, see her be more vulnerable and not understand what to do, you know, look back to the flashbacks of her mother, connect it with something. But no, Elodie just knows exactly what to do and exactly the way out, with no context or explanation whatsoever. Again, here is another example of her just telling us stuff instead of us actually seeing her figure it out. Another problem, when her father comes down to finally save her, once again, I didn't really feel anything for him. I really felt that they could have showed perhaps a deeper bond that had drifted over time. I feel like they could have talked about their mother and shown us flashbacks with her mother, and her father, and they could have just done something so that I could care, so that the betrayal of him selling her off could have hit me deeper and I could have cared more. Or to show the opposite, to show that her father was a very greedy man from the beginning. He never cared. In his last moments, he realizes how bad this has been. But either way, I didn't care when the father died either. I'm sorry. Also, the prince was also quite lackluster as a character, but I'm guessing that's the point. I didn't really feel anything about him as well, and I didn't care when he died. He just gave absolutely nothing, and I sound like a psychopath making this audio, but it's true. I feel like we could have given the prince a little bit of personality. He only protested the killing and sacrificing of these girls when it came to her little sister because she was simply too young. But again, my man, it doesn't really show. When Elodie sees him again, he says that he's been crying, or he's been thinking about it for the past 2 days, but we haven't actually seen you struggle. We haven't seen you cry. We haven't seen you mourn or maybe be torn apart by how this is really affecting you. You haven't shown us anything, so I can't believe you. Do you see what I mean? I also feel like the movie did not utilize a possible bond that could have happened with the prince for the sake of having a strong female lead character. There seems to be this consensus that with strong female leads, they cannot use their male leads to also be useful to them without them quote unquote being weak. And it's like, that's not really the case. I would have preferred in this situation to have a prince that really has a fun personality, or a personality who's just trying to struggle to get out of this family and he just wants to be free. And she creates an alliance with him and he's useful and he helps sabotage his family and he helps destroy what's been going on, maybe stab a nobility here and there. And they don't have to be together. They don't have to be romantically linked, just like in Brave. They don't have to be romantically together. He could just be useful to her. Like, you can make him useful and still have her as the strong, independent lead. I hope you guys can see my point. I stan having strong leads. I stan having independence, but I also understand that life is much more nuanced than that. And you can't just like do everything yourself. You need other people. So what a better way to show strength than in community? I don't know, y'all. This is just me, but that's how I personally felt. That could have been done better. I also felt that this whole entire film was too short, and perhaps maybe it could have been a series of some sort, but at the same time I felt like perhaps the script, because it is not necessarily based on one specific work, it's rather based on different tropes within fairy tales. That's why this movie didn't really feel as concrete, because this movie was said to be 1 hour and 30 minutes if I'm not mistaken, but truly when you watch it, it's just 1 hour and 12. I really think that Netflix put a lot of money into this project for the vibes, and it's so sad because I feel like this movie could have given us a more Daenerys Targaryen energy, but you know what I mean? I feel like this could have been so much more stronger as a project had they had a better script and had they had a better build and understanding, and also had they had more screen time rather than just trying to shove a bunch of tropes within 1 hour and 12 minutes. And what's difficult about this is that for a long time, we have been asking a lot of Hollywood producers, movie makers to create original projects. And while, yes, this is quote unquote something that is original straight from a studio, it is unoriginal in the fact that it just takes tropes and tries and births something out of tropes that we've seen before, but gives nothing refreshing or new to the substance. It does not meet the needs that we need as consumers when it comes to fantasy. I really think that this was a very big missed opportunity, but overall, I still give the movie a 6 out of 10. Like, I mean, it's beautiful. The outfits were quite amazing. I did love Millie Bobby Brown's hair, especially her red hair at a certain point. I think this is a really good color on her, that whole ginger look. Also, Angela Bassett's in this movie, and I felt like they really helped this movie survive, because without them, this would have been an ultimate disaster. But you guys tell me down in the comments below how you feel. I'll see you guys in my next video. Okay, bye.
Oh my.